What's up, demons and demonettes? Tis I, Atraxi, Demon Queen, and today we're going to touch base on the updated Clashfronts. But before we get into it, as always, toss a like and subscribe down below. Now I'm going to cover some VG squads, Vanguard squads, after this that I'm going to be running on my main account after doing some testing, after we got Italia, all that good stuff. But let's take a look at the new map first. Now it looks like if the old map that we had back in Waves and the new map we just had a few weeks back had a baby, and they spit out this monstrosity of a map. I mean, this thing has 16 nodes. It's crazy. So the easiest way to look at it, right, because we have to scroll around, there's no effective way to zoom out. So what happened was the Tooth Fairy over at Yapala and all the people doing a good work over there managed to come up with this graphic, right? So if you want to take a screenshot of this for your planning for your upcoming Clashfronts, go ahead and do that. I'm definitely going to be using this for my Clashfronts just because of how hard it is to grab it, and we'll just kind of like put our own spin on it type deal right as we go along. So because if you look at this, we've got over 16 nodes, right? So depending on where you start, essentially every guild is going to get a free node. That's going to be this node here, like here, here, and here, right? And it's only accessible to the guild once they take like the node to the left of them, right? So they have to take this node, then they can access this one. They would have to take, this guild would take this node to get that, this, that, and then this, that, right? So it's kind of protected at least round one, so you're guaranteed to get a free node round one, right? So what you're probably going to want to do is adequately divide your forces to take this node and this node. Now, one of the things that's going to come up, I believe it's in round 3, right? That's when the treasure hamster spawns. On the Pioneer server, right, we were in this corner. So we took this node, we got this node for free. When you take this node, right, you can see that this is then, we got another free node here. This node, however, is right, so this node and this node are contested. But if you take this node, the north or south nodes, then the S2 and S2, these are essentially going to be free nodes for you. So you could just put one here, to like grab that, try to hold this, maybe try to hold this, or make a play to grab this one instead, right? Because you'd be giving up 100 to gain a 120. If you grab this node and this node, obviously that's going to be really good, because then you're going to have access to this guy, and this guy in the middle. So that's going to open up the middle pretty nice for you. Again, if you can grab this guy and this guy, this becomes a free node in the next round. So on Pioneer, we grabbed this node and we had grabbed this node, and lo and behold, the match ended because Pioneer got turned off. But we would have had essentially the first grab at the hamster for free. Now, we wouldn't have controlled it when the hamster was giving out goodies. We would have just kind of had it. I'm not sure exactly how the hamster's gonna work this time. I just noticed that he had up to 600. So I don't know if he's going to give 600 a time, or if he has a 600 in total, and he just digs up the treasure each round that he's there. So they could have changed how the treasure hamster worked. It wasn't clear. But considering that the treasure hamster is up to 600, and just controlling the middle is only 600, controlling that treasure hamster is going to be big good. So you definitely want to go for the hamster whenever that pops up. Now, I think coordinating this thing is going to be a bit of a nightmare, and they didn't really give any tools to guild leaders to assist in that. But one of the #1 requested things that I saw, and I requested myself, was the ability for the guild leadership to freely deploy the units. So ideally you would have your barracks here, your main fortress that can't be attacked, that gives no points. Everybody deploys their forces here, and then the guild leader can kind of deploy those squads freely amongst the tiles. Now I say guild leader, but it could be the vice leaders as well, so your officers too. That way you have coverage on multiple fronts. It's just trying to coordinate 30 people for this thing. Even getting 30 people to coordinate for the last one in a top performing guild is a bit of a hassle, right? It's a little rough getting everybody in there, and you kind of have to keep your plans, or at least I do. I keep my plans as simple as possible, so I rely heavily on the Vanguard to follow direction and do what they need to do. But then since the core members of the guild are all around the same power base, I can have them like, hey guys, just freely deploy. We should be okay in the end, right? In theory, on paper, it would be nice to be able to kind of like maneuver squads around based on power ranking, so we could just kind of like divvy up the squads a little bit better. But that's something really in depth and more kind of alluded that we would need to do, that we just don't have the tools to do. Anyway, I'm undecided on this map. I don't really have like a number one strategy. So basically what I'm thinking ultimately what this is going to become is a game of cat and mouse and trying to control the hamster, right? So we're gonna kind of like do a round by round overview of what it might look like, right? So say we're team blue up here. I'll just pick them as an example, right? So we get our free tile, so we put one Vanguard squad there, and then we divvy up our squads between the north and now west, right? So it's not like the last map where we would put maybe 15 on the free tile to try to grab points out of combat trial, and then throw 80 or so at the contested tile, because there's two contested tiles, right? So one of the other things that you have to be worried about round one is a possible alliance between this guild and this guild, right? Or this guild and this guild, right? Because one of the things that happened in the previous round is if two of the other guilds allied, and you split your forces trying to take these tiles, and you weren't able to overpower them, but per se, or if in our case you had everybody not deployed and you were a few squads short of what you actually needed to grab that tile, now you're losing this tile, and now you're losing this tile, and you're only gonna get this tile, so you're already going to be behind the 8-ball trying to catch up, which is not fun in this game mode. At least if you're trying to get win. If you want to try to play for second place after that, you know. But ideally what you would do is you would either, you know, if you have someone you have an alliance with in the previous set of games, maybe you want to carry that alliance over, especially since how difficult this one is and how easy it is going to be to extend your forces. And it's going to end up like the Korean War, where the North Koreans attacked the South Koreans and they overextended their alliance. The Americans came in, they beat them up, send them back, and then the Americans overextend their lines, right, and then they get beaten back. So, and then you got a stalemate in the middle. We don't want to do something where we're gonna overextend our forces. So it's gonna be more of a game of cat and mouse, where we're moving around the map, grabbing nodes, maybe not trying to defend nodes as much, but we're just gonna go after. We're gonna go after and chase those higher value nodes. Try to grab those nodes. The only node that may be worth trying to hold is that hamster, right? So what it could look like, and what I'm thinking it's going to look like, it's going to be something like this, right? So we go in, so say we're blue, and we're going to talk about maybe like more of an ideal scenario, right? So we grab this, round 1, we grab this round 1, we get the free one round 1, right? So we keep our one VG squad here round 1, and then what we can do is we can get our free tile here. So we put a VG squad here just to get those extra skirmish points, right? So I always use the 5th ranked one. So you always want your worst Vanguard squad if you're going to just solo a node. And then maybe you get your skirmish points, you get your occupation points, and then you can get a few points in the combat trial. So maybe you get an extra 10 points by throwing a VG squad in there, or maybe you'd only get an extra 2 points if you just someone had to throw a regular squad in there. Alright. So, then what I imagine is maybe we don't defend this tile as much, and we go for this tile, or we abandon. So you're basically going to want to abandon, I think, the 100 tiles here is what it's going to be, and then maybe you go for this 120 and you go for this 120, or you try to hold this 100 and you go for this 120, or you just grab your free 100 here, abandon this one, go big for this one, and try to hold this one, right? Because again, we don't want to overextend ourselves and leave ourselves vulnerable to these other guilds, right? Because even if you are, unless you have all Paragon 4 and everybody in your guild is a Kraken and has all Paragon 4, which is not going to be the case for most guilds. So even if you are the strongest guild, if they pinpoint attack you, you're probably going to lose your node. Now, for our guild, maybe we need like 50 squads to hold off some of the lighter guilds that maybe we would be dealing with. But that's going to be half of our squads, right? So then we're going to only have maybe another 40 to 50 squads in that range to freely deploy. So we're going to be abandoning nodes quickly. We're just be like, look, we're just gonna give up on this node. Maybe we just want to keep a couple squads here in case they don't go for the node, right? Because then we get the points for that node. So maybe like you keep like 1 or 2 squads here. You get this guy becomes a free one, so you don't really have to worry about that one. And then, like I said, you try to defend this one, you go big for this one, or you go big for this one, right? And then you just kind of like maybe abandon this one, or just kind of hold off on this one, right? There's a lot of options, but we definitely, because if you do get this one or you get this one, essentially you're getting this node for free in round 2, which then in round 3 will give you access to the middle, which is ideally what we want. Now I say we want to grab this one, and then we want to grab this one, because then this becomes a free node. Alternatively, you could grab this one, right? If we're blue, we would grab this one, and then this one, and then this would become our free node, right? And then we would have access to this and this, right? So ideally, we could get, again, another free node here, which means we have a couple of options. I mean, ideally, if everything went well, we would, get this free node. Maybe we lose this node, maybe we lose this node, but we grab this node and this node, and then these both become free nodes. That's like a best case type scenario. And then we get both of these as free nodes. That would be amazing. Now, if you say have an alliance, right? I would say it would be ideal for the alliance members to grab this, right? So if we're here and say we're allied with red or yellow, they would grab this. They would get that for free. Then one of us would grab this, the other one would grab this, and then we would have this. So then that means your alliance would be the only ones with access to the center. And then what you could do is just kind of like try to defend 2 nodes, and got 2 free nodes here, right? And maybe not worry about these outer nodes, which aren't worth so much, right? We obviously want the bigger value nodes. And then the treasure hamster is going to be big as well. That's why I say, like, alliances, I think, are going to be big because there are 16 nodes here. We have almost double the amount of nodes we have in the last one. So you definitely want to, but the thing is, you definitely want to target those higher value nodes in the center. However, you want to make sure that you can get that treasure hamster, because that thing is going to be extremely valuable depending on how many coins we're able to snag out of it. Now, we should have an idea. I mean, I don't think we're gonna get the treasure hamster on VN before it drops on a global, so I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work, but those are some things you can do and some strategy. And again, feel free to take a screenshot here. I'll move out of the way so you can see it much more easily, right? So that now that I'm out of the way, you can go and grab your screenshot. You got your screenshot? Okay. Well, I mean, you could just pause it too. You could always go back a couple seconds, pause it, get it, and you are good. All right. So now that that's done, let's go to a main account. And as I have been doing lately with my PvP teams, I will post the formation code here in the description down below, so go ahead and check that out. But this is what I'm thinking for my teams. As you can see, we're running a lot of the same and or similar teams that we ran last time, right? We just have a couple new things that have come around since the last Clashfront. One is Shakira Bomb comp. This comp is amazing. And Thalia, and she is just a nightmare. So I kind of had to rework my teams, right? So I think about the only teams that are the exact same that I started at the beginning of Clashfronts is this team here. All of the other teams have been edited and revised since that original Clashfront. Alright, so let's go ahead. We're going to go in and we're going to take a look and the logic behind the comps that I built. Alright, so here we replaced Elsa with a Bonnie. Unfortunately, Bonnie didn't have a comp that I could get into. I was trying to form and test another Graveborn comp, right? So I could have 2 Graveborn comps, 2 Wilder comps, and maybe the Shakira Bomb comp. However, the other Graveborn comp just didn't pan out. And you know what? I'm like, okay, we'll just go with the control comp. It's a little bit better. So unfortunately, we're still kind of stuck running this one on the Vanguard. Just because we're limited with options with Graveborn, it's very difficult to run more than one comp. Alright, so here's like the new comp, and this is the way that I'm going to be running it. We're going to talk about a potential sub that might have some better impact. This is Shakira Bomb, right? So we need 3 Celestial Hypos in this team. So you're going to see we're going to be running Burial. The only 3 ones that were kind of not available for me after this were Burial, Scarlita, the Twins, and Rainer. So I had 4. My Rainer's not built up. I'm not a huge Rainer fan for PvP. So I said, okay, I'm not going to run him because his Paragon level's not high enough. I mean, he would work because we have to box in Shakira. That's important. Scarlita, we could try to get Scarlita. It's just the way I want to run it. That Scarlita doesn't work. You can't use Scarlita to box in Shakira. So what we would have to do is actually move Cryonaya over here. And we'd have to significantly kind of like change up the formation and how we're running it. But Cryonaya would have to go here. And then Scarlita would go here. That is an option. The twins are another option. You put the twins on the real Freyasto here. So you put one here, you put one here, and that should box in your Shakir as well. The other option, like I said, is Burial here. And that's who we ended up running, just because that kind of like worked out best. Now, you can sub in Brian, because Brian's not out there really doing much for me. And then one of the things that, there's two things that kind of counter Shakir Bomb. It's going to be a Lily May, and Dun is going to shut it down completely, right? Because Dun is going to prevent Shakir from ulting at the start of battle. The way this works is when Shakir's boxed in like this, he's just gonna generate a ton of energy. He's gonna jump over and just nuke everybody on the other side of the field. That's why it's called Shakir Bomb. Now, Dun prevents Shakir from ulting and shuts it down, so like Dun Dio is going to deal a lot of damage. Lily May also interrupts Shakir, so you could run Brian over Sonya in this case to eat that initial counter from Lily May. However, in testing, you notice we will have Cryonaya over to the side, so Shakir eating that first counter from Lily isn't such a bad thing, because then we have our win condition with Cryonaya. And unless people are planning for some of these teams, they're going to be very, very difficult to defeat, which you don't necessarily get in Vanguard, right? You can't pick and choose what teams you're going against, other than what you throw into skirmish. Alright, so then we are going to run my version of the Graveborn team, which uses Kaylin, Ludovic, Siren, Harak, and Nara. Yeah, this is just a very, very effective Vanguard team. It's very, very nasty. It got into the melee in my district and was undefeated. Had a 9-win streak and had no more teams to kill. I think it could have gotten anywhere from a 11 to 12 win streak before it was actually defeated. So while these two at the higher fatigue levels are usually die, we still have our P4 Siren going, and he's being protected by Kaylin and Ludovic, and they just do just a ton of damage and just wreck teams. This team is untouched since last time. Again, I'm not running it with Lily May. I broke Lily May out into another team, so we're running it with Alenia, who's someone who's really, really good for a PvP, and kind of just helps us out because we need that extra wilder for that wilder tile. And I'm like, who's gonna synergize well with this team of who I left? Because you can run a Dun and a Lily May together. I find it's better to separate them, because you gotta keep them separated. So we do that, and it works out a little bit better for us. This squad is great. We don't really got to use Alenia a whole bunch. She is a hero that she is one of those heroes that I really like that I just don't get to use. So I like to try to utilize those types of heroes in these multiple team game modes. And lastly, we have the latest comp that's like really, really strong. This is the Athalia comp. This is going to use Taylene, Damien, Athalia, Lily May, and Tassie, right? So the idea kind of here with this comp is that Taylene kind of keeps coming back as long as there's someone alive on the battlefield. Tassie kind of skirts around dying somewhat. Lily May is hard to kill. Damien is just a pain. And Athalia is just like the PvP queen, right? She's just like the new it hero for PvP. And even if she does manage to get killed, because we have other heroes that are kind of skirting and dancing around death that can come back to life, her lance form is going to be up on the battlefield, right? So if Athalia dies early, say, and Tassie's is still fluttering around because she's going to have concealed, so she's going to be extra harder to kill. It's going to allow our Taylene to keep coming back. It's going to allow our Damien to keep doing stuff. And it's going to allow Athalia's Lance to just delete people left and right. So this is a very, very strong Athalia team. This is probably the best Athalia team, as you notice. A lot of people running a Bonnie here, or we're subbing out Bonnie. We still want to use a Bonnie because Bonnie is a very, very strong PvP hero. It's just that, again, we don't really have a space for it. If I could have gotten that third Graveborn comp to work, we could have run her in that. The problem is that we could not. Because we only have one Ludovic, right? That's the problem. We could have tried something maybe with like Bonnie, Thorin, Rainer, and Nero, but or another Graveborn like a Sylvina. But then we would have needed a support, and we're kind of already low on support heroes at this time. So nothing I was thinking about really panned out. So we're kind of doing that. We're using Ice Wall spell here. We're gonna give it to Almas, so he's gonna be extra big and tanky, and he's gonna go up into the melee pretty early along with our Aaron, and he's just going to slow it. He's gonna add that extra control mechanic, right? So the only team that's really gonna give this team a lot of problems is going to be your Dunlinger teams. Now, if you're lucky like me, maybe you don't have Dunlinger on the opposing side of the battlefield, and it's not really something you have to worry about. But if you do have later teams in your melee, control team is definitely a good team to throw out there. And so we have that to run for that. And yeah, that's kind of it. We'll kind of like try to get some updates once we have some actual combat and we can kind of like see it in reality. But those are just my thoughts at this time, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye.